If you're buying on the Costa del Sol this summer, you're going to be really curious about which location is right for you. Benalmadena and Fuengirola are 10 minutes apart. They're on the same train line and they're generating the most interest right now from our international buyers. Today we're going to dive into both of these locations, what makes them great, but equally what makes them different. We have helped hundreds of international buyers make this exact move themselves. We ourselves live in Benalmadena and have done for the last 10 years, so we're perfectly qualified to answer any questions when it comes to day-to-day life in Benalmadena. Today, I'm going to put you through your paces and ask you and share with you the top 5 questions that we ask all of our international buyers who cannot choose between these locations. I promise you, by the end of this episode, you will be able to choose clearly between both of these locations for yourself. But before we start, please hit subscribe and follow along to wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps us to understand if you like these episodes, if you like our content, and we continue to bring you more for free. Okay, so I am flying solo today. I need to be honest with you, it's hot. We are in July. We are experiencing really high temperatures and I am struggling with the heat. So if I look a bit shiny-faced and sweaty through the course of this episode, please bear with me because that is just reality of summer life in Spain. I hope you're having a great summer. We certainly are. We've had lots going on. Typically in summer, we try to take the foot off the gas a little bit to try to enjoy some family time and balance work along with that. So we've been doing that. We've definitely been enjoying the sunshine, all of the World Cup festivities. At this point, you will now know that Spain has won the World Cup and we really enjoyed celebrating here and enjoying that fantastic milestone. So let's get into today's topic, a really important one. Now, typically in summertime, we see clients come out to the Costa del Sol on their holidays. They get to know the area for themselves. They often have their first discovery face-to-face session with us. And it's all about getting to know the location that's right for them and really exploring the different towns and locations on the Costa del Sol and doing some deep dives into potentially where they can see themselves living. And this summer, we've noticed that there's been a lot of interest, as always, towards Benalmadena and Fuengirola, but more than we've seen in previous summers. And I really feel that this is due to the fact that people are realizing if you live in either of these locations, you're so close to the airport, you don't always need to rely on a car. And there's lots going on in terms of all year round communities. So when those winter months come and the travelers have gone back home, you can still find yourself with the ability of forming an all year round community in both of these towns. Last week, we brought one of our fantastic buyers all the way from Ireland through this process. And we're going to share the exact process with you today. We're going to walk you through the 5 key questions that we take all of our buyers through when their location's stuck. Let's put it that way, when they can't really figure out which location could be right for me. So I'd love for you to follow along to these questions today, particularly if you're thinking about Benalmadena or Fuengirola or any other location along the Costa del Sol. These questions might help you to get the clarity you need so that you can take the next step on your Costa del Sol journey. You ready? Let's go. Question number 1, the question that changes everything. Are you buying a holiday home or are you buying a home for good? A permanent home where you can live the next chapter of your life in Spain. They're 2 very different things, and they will command 2 very different lifestyles. Often, when people are buying on the Costa del Sol for the first time, if they're not making the move instantly to relocate, they'll buy the foot on the ladder property. So they'll buy a property that they can vacation in, that their family can vacation in. Potentially, they might rent it out if they're allowed to have a tourist license to generate some extra income. It really helps them to get their foot on the ladder, to get really clear about Spain, to get really clear about the area that they'd like to live in Spain and the lifestyle that they want to have when they get to Spain. And it really helps them make those first steps and get comfortable. Now, if you're going all in from the beginning and you've decided, I'm packing up the suitcases, I'm moving today, I'm going to make that permanent move, you're going to look for a property that you can live comfortably in all year round. So what we have there is two different things. We have two different property types, and you really need to think about this question clearly in advance, because if you're coming out for holidays, as opposed to moving permanently, what you want for your property is going to be different. Okay, if you're coming out only for holidays, you might overlook some things. Maybe you have some noisy neighbours or you're in a busier area. However, if you're going to be living here all year round, you're going to be working, you're going to really have to integrate into the community. You're going to want a home that you can really visualize yourself living in and enjoying that next chapter of your life. So that question up front is important. Two different types of properties, two very different criterias, two very different lifestyles that you're going to achieve from purchasing either of these options. So just to recap again, question one, are you buying for a holiday home or are you buying for a permanent home? Question number two, do you want to walk everywhere or do you want to drive? Why is this important? Because for those of you who know the Costa del Sol or have been following along to our podcast, you'll know that we do have a train line that runs from Malaga Centro onto Malaga Airport all the way to Fuengirola and the towns and villages in between. Now, if you're coming to purchase a holiday home and you don't necessarily want to be driving when you get here or have the hassle of a car because you're only going to be spending a few months of the year here, you need to ensure that you have accessibility, particularly if you don't want to rent a car or you don't want to drive when you're here. You need to be very aware of the logistics when you get here, what's available to you in terms of local transport options, train or bus. Now, Fuengirola and Benalmadena are very popular due to the fact that they're serviced by the local train line, okay? And that makes accessibility for people really easy. So let's say, for example, you get to Malaga Airport, you get your bags, you hop on the train. If you're traveling to Benalmadena, you'll be in Arroyo de la Miel train station within 20 to 25 minutes. 10 minutes away, you're into Fuengirola where the train line stops. It's a massive benefit for people, particularly if they're only coming, as I said, for part of the year and they don't want the hassle of a car, but also for people that are moving here permanently, okay? That flexibility and accessibility of the train line is a massive advantage. It's also a massive advantage when it comes to the fact that you may actually sell your property at some point further down the line if you're planning to upgrade, expand to a larger property, or when you've got even clearer about your long-term life here on the Costa del Sol. Really sitting and evaluating, do we want the hassle of a car? Do we not? You need to answer that question clearly because it helps you pigeonhole your location and then understand what's available to me in terms of public transport in that location, because if that's going to be a priority for you, we want to understand that really clearly from the offset. Now, the other thing that I want to just mention on that is if you're buying your property for investment so that you can use it, but also rent it out when you're not using it, accessibility to public transport, train line or bus, that's going to be very important for people that intend to use your property. People coming on holidays do not always want to hire a car. They don't always want to drive. They're very much in holiday mode. Potentially they drive every day in their day-to-day life at home, going to work. And maybe they just want to hang up those boots when they get to the Costa del Sol and rely less on needing to think about a car, where to park, particularly in summertime. It's a nightmare. So we want to answer that question from the get-go. Okay, so question number 3. Who's your property really for? That might sound really obvious, but let's get really clear on that. Who's your property really for? Are you a family making the move permanently? Are you a family purchasing for a holiday home or a second home on the Costa del Sol? Are you a retired couple wanting to purchase a holiday home on the Costa del Sol or making the permanent move? Are you a family with older kids and you have a little bit more time on your hands and you want to dip your toe into life on the Costa del Sol now? Have a holiday home for the next 5 years with the intention of seeing is the long-term move right for you to relocate to the Costa del Sol in the future? Will you have an elderly parent coming to visit you often? Will you have older kids that will need to access you often? What's that dynamic looking like for you? How often do you expect visitors? So we need to get really clear on who is the property for. For example, if you are a family relocating to the Costa del Sol with younger kids, schools are going to be front of mind for you. Benalmadena naturally has more schooling options than Fuengirola, particularly if you need to explore the international schooling route. Are you retiring? Healthcare is going to be important for you. You want to ensure that you've got the security of having access to international healthcare. Both Fuengirola and Benalmadena offer excellent options when it comes to private international healthcare. So you can explore both of those options really well in both of those locations, and maybe you want to do a little SWOT analysis on what both of these towns offer for you. But if international healthcare is important for you, you want to be able to access private healthcare in English, you can do that very well in both of these locations, but maybe you want to see what else is on offer in those locations for you when it comes to breaking down your shortlist and choosing the right location for you. If you're buying to rent out, things like access to healthcare is going to be important too. Unfortunately, we do often experience when people come on holidays, there's accidents. God forbid somebody has a fall, breaks a tooth. If you're located in a remote area, particularly that doesn't cater to the international tourist or the international buyer, these amenities, these facilities may be further afield for you, and that convenience might not be on offer. So you do need to think about it and really weigh up the pros and cons in terms of, if my apartment or my property, my house, my townhouse, my villa, if that's going to be used to rent out when you're not using it, what is the traveller going to want? What's going to be important for them? Because you need to take that criteria into consideration when you're making your decision as well. Number 4, a really important one. What does my budget get me in each town? Okay, so to be fair, when it comes to Fuengirola and Benalmadena, Fuengirola is typically more expensive, maybe about 5 to 8%, depending on the postcode. It is a little bit more expensive than Benalmadena. But there's not a lot in the difference when it comes to price points. It's not like you're comparing Benalmadena with Marbella or Estepona. They're fairly comparable, but you can expect, as I say, Fuengirola to be a little bit more on the expensive side. But with that said, you may get very different things for your budget in each area. So if you are looking for a townhouse on a golf course, Benalmadena all the way, that's going to be available to you very easily in Benalmadena. If you want a traditional apartment, town, city centre location, walking distance to the train station, that's going to be available in both Fuengirola and Benalmadena, but more expensive in Fuengirola, because what you have to remember about Fuengirola is you're really on the flat. Benalmadena has a lot of hills. Fuengirola really gives you that walkability, accessibility, and the town centre is very close to the beach. So the likelihood is you can walk from the train station to your apartment and to the beach very easily, all completely on the flat. You do need to take that into consideration. So, as I say, in Benalmadena, both of those options are possible for you, but the price tag is going to be more expensive in Fuengirola due to the fact that accessibility is easier. In Benalmadena, when you are walking from the train station up or down to the coast, to the beach, you're going to have to endeavour hills. It's just part of the terrain here, whereas in Fuengirola you're not going to have that same obstacle. So if mobility is a challenge for you, or that's something that you're going to need to be thinking about in the next few years, then you're probably going to want to explore Fuengirola a bit more. Then you need to think about budget in that location. It's going to be more expensive than Benalmadena. These are things that we need to think about up front and take into consideration as well. And the last question is, what do you want to have within a 5-minute walk or drive of your front door? What do I mean by that? If you are someone who absolutely does not want to have busy tourist environment close to your house, you're going to need to take that into consideration, because the Costa del Sol is a holiday resort, and there is periods of the year where it is incredibly busy, like right now, where parking can become a challenge, where you will need to make reservations in your favourite restaurants. Now, if you're somebody who just doesn't want to experience that in the height of the season, you need to give that a lot of thought, because otherwise you're going to hate where you've bought for 6 months of the year. That's very important. That would mean that you'd need to, if you were picking Fuengirola or Benalmadena, you'd need to pick quieter areas, more community focused areas where the locals live. that are not as potentially saturated by tourism, where there's maybe not as many hotels located, so that you can have less of that flow of people during those peak season months. That's going to be important for you. If you want to have the beach within 5 minutes walk of your door, it's inevitable that in many months of the year, you're going to have to deal with higher volume of people than others. If that's absolutely not something that you want, you need to rethink and potentially say, okay, I'm going to focus maybe a little bit more inland, or look at some quieter towns and villages potentially around Benalmadena and Fuengirola. Now, all of this is possible to explore, but this is why we need to answer these questions really important up front. And this last question is really about you visualizing and connecting with that life that you have when you reach the Costa del Sol. That's important. It's a question that I think that people underestimate, because we see this with our buyers all the time. They get so engrossed in the aesthetic of the property and what their life looks like within the four walls that they forget about the importance of outside those four walls. And underestimating the type of life that you want when you get here is very important. It's a very expensive mistake that you can make if you get it wrong. One of our clients asked us last week on their buying trip. They came so well prepared. They had their list of questions. They said, what is potentially a mistake that people can make when it comes to the Costa del Sol? We hear about the great things about life on the Costa del Sol, and there is wonderful things. Life is great here, only if you've put the legwork in, only if you've really taken the time to understand what your life looks like when you get here. So I would say this is your groundwork. This is for you to go away and really put in the muscle to understand what your life looks like when you get here. Do you want to have a car? Do you want to be close to public transport? What amenities are really important for you within 5 minutes of your front door? Are you happy to be in a location that will get busy for 6 months of the year, or is that absolutely something that you just can't tolerate? What does your budget get you in these different locations? We need to understand all of this up front before we get sucked in or drawn into the aesthetic of the pretty pictures of a property. Because if you prioritize the aesthetic and inside the four walls more than what's happening externally and within close proximity to your property, you could really end up hating your property very quickly. That is a mistake that people make. So we need to do the legwork up front to make sure that you don't make this mistake, and that we get the non-negotiables really clear from the offset before we start thinking about what does your property look like on the inside. Every property can be made beautiful. A bit of cosmetic work, a bit of patience, but you have very little influence and control over what happens outside your property. And this is why we really need to take the time to live in that before we start thinking about shortlisting property searches, paying reservation deposits, because getting this wrong is so expensive. This is something that we see a lot. We were contacted by a client, I don't think they'd mind me mentioning this actually, Roger and Stephanie. I wrote about them recently in our social media, where they had a dream to move to Spain, like most of you listening, watching. They really felt like they wanted to be remote. They wanted the idyllic Spanish lifestyle, country village, rustic property. They were a mature couple. They were moving over here permanently to retire to Spain. That idyllic life is beautiful. There's no doubt about that. However, if you don't speak Spanish, that could be a challenge for you. If you're getting older in life and you need to start thinking about healthcare, that rustic, idyllic life, you're going to be traveling to healthcare should you need to avail of the services of a doctor or medical professionals. Summertime, okay, people will be around, but in winter, it might just be you and the goats. You have to take that into consideration. So one of the challenges for Roger and Stephanie was that Stephanie really wanted community. She thought that by buying a property on the outskirts of a village, that there would be other expats like her that she could connect with, go and have a coffee with. But that didn't happen in winter when everyone had went home, and it meant that her life became very lonely. So the idyllic, rustic life that they'd envisioned, that they'd really thought that they'd want, that soon became a nightmare. So how we were supporting them was to really go back to basics, support them to sell their current existing property and buy something in a location that offered them all year round community. Because at the end of the day, we need community, especially if we're moving abroad. We need to build a new community. So connection and people is super important. So learn from that story. And I think that if you're really set about you want that rustic ideal lifestyle, then I would really encourage you to try before you buy. So Airbnb for maybe a month, 6 weeks. Do it multiple times at different times of the year to see, could I live here? Could this be a permanent option for me? That's important. Take your time with this stuff, guys. This is not the part of your search that we want to rush. When all of these dominoes sit into place and we're clear on these questions, the next steps, they happen very fast. All of those steps fall into place really easily when we're really clear about what we want. We always say there's no wrong town, but there is the right town for you. So I hope you've enjoyed following along today. I hope you've got really honest with yourself when it comes to answering those key 5 questions. And I really hope that today has given you some clarity for your next step with your Costa del Sol property search. If you haven't already taken our location quiz, this is your sign to do it now. This year, we spent some time supporting our clients with a tool that gave them clarity when it comes to picking their location. It's a location quiz that personalizes your location. It takes 30 seconds, it's completely free to do, and it then will send you your personalized location profile directly to your email. So what are you waiting for? The link for our quiz is in the show notes, or you can find it on our website or on any of our social media profiles. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping by. Please remember to like and subscribe or share this episode with somebody in your network that you feel could benefit from following along to these 5 questions. Thank you for being here. I'm off now to turn on the air conditioning. I wish you a great rest of summer and see you on the next episode. Ciao for now.